What is going on, everybody? Sam Dog, the infamous 253, and Brendon Nelson back at you guys, ready to do the Week 4 game preview of the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Miami Dolphins down in South Beach in Miami, Florida, in the Miami Gardens. Brendon, how you doing?
I'm doing good today, Sam. Thank you for having me back on as usual.
Yep, appreciate you coming in. So that way we can give the people our preview and what we have to do to be able to, avoid a trap and handle our business against another coach that comes from the Bill Belichick coaching tree, since we're taking on Brian Flores. So first off, what do you want to start out with for first key going into this game?
Well, I think the first key when you're taking a look at this game is it's as you said, this game is the very definition of a trap game. This game feels exactly like the kind of game where you're 3-0, you've started the season maybe a little better than you were expecting, a little better than I was expecting. You're feeling good, and now you have this game against an AFC opponent that started the season pretty bad. It is definitely the definition of a trap game. And one thing that really makes me think that that may come into play on Sunday is the weather report, which could get pretty ugly down in Miami. We have reports of there being rain, and we also have reports of it being very hot. It could be north of 80 degrees. And I have seen this Seahawks team not play very well in heat before. We have a history of struggling in games that have a lot of heat. We also have a history of not playing really well on offense when there's rain.
Yeah.
So right away, I'm looking at this game, and more than I am thinking about the Dolphins team, I'm thinking about the environment we're going to be playing this game in. So right away, I'm concerned, like, what's the weather going to be on Sunday? That's one thing that I'm really looking at.
I would be concerned about it too, but I know when it rains in Seattle, we've Russell Wilson has been pretty good other than some other games in rain, in Washington rain. I mean, Florida rain's a little different because when it rains down there, it pours in that too. But another thing, though, that I'm going in concerned on are the injuries we have in our secondary with obviously Jamal Adams and then Quentin Dunbar, Nico Thorpe, Lano Hill, and then also the injury to who else we got injured on the secondary. I'm just trying to remember if I named them all.
Basically half the team. Just pick a random name on this team. He's probably on the injury report, man. There's a 50% chance right now you pick a random guy on this team and he's on the injury report. I don't know if it's because we didn't have a preseason. I don't know if it's because we don't have a good strength and conditioning coach. I don't know if it's bad luck. But it's kind of crazy right now, all the stuff we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I think that in terms of the team that we're playing this week in the Miami Dolphins, you would hope that you could play some backups and still get the win.
Yeah.
You hope that you can just trot out whoever you happen to have who's actually 100% and get the win. So right off the bat, I can tell you, I don't think Jamal Adams is going to play. I'm pretty skeptical that Dunbar is going to play. I'm pretty confident that Jordan Brooks is not going to play.
Yep.
And
Brooks.
yeah, other than that, though, I kind of feel like everybody else is going to play. I think a lot of the guys who were resting, who didn't practice on Wednesday or didn't practice very much on Wednesday, were just doing it to rest. Greg Olsen, why does Greg Olsen need to practice when you really think about it? Greg Olsen has been in this league for a long time.
Right.
He doesn't need to practice. Tyler Lockett, dude is very, very familiar with how to play in this offense with Russell Wilson. He doesn't need to practice every day. We're talking about practice. So that I'm pretty optimistic on, but I can tell you right now, Jamal Adams, Quentin Dunbar, and Jordan Brooks, you can kind of maybe count on not having them on Sunday, and we're going to have to win despite that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you and a bunch of other things. Would this be maybe a good week to, rest Jamal Adams these next 2 weeks between Miami and Minnesota, just to not make his groin worse, just to for sure that, like, because, the week after Minnesota would be our bye week in week 6. So is this one of those good weeks to, like, rest him maybe?
Yeah, if he is actually 100%, then I want him to play. I would say that about pretty much any player, but I think it's pretty clear that he's not going to be 100%. So I do look for us to not play Jamal Adams against Miami or Minnesota. I look for us to go forward with probably Lano Hill and Quandre Diggs back there. Yeah. And I think that's fine. I think we should be able to win games anyway. It's not like our defense was the reason why we were winning these games anyway. So Yeah, I'm pretty on board with that. I think that Jamal Adams will probably not play the next two games, and that seems about right to me.
And what about are there any good odds about us possibly bringing up Demarius Randall from the practice squad to play in this game, in your opinion, the guy we
Well,
just signed?
offhand, I would say we just got him. I don't think he's ready. He might not be in shape. He might not know the defense. I I would hope that Demarius Randall does not play on Sunday because that's a scenario where you're talking about a guy who could easily blow a play, blow a coverage, and give up a long touchdown, or just completely be out of position on a play because he just got here. So hopefully we can at least avoid that. I like the signing. I think it was necessary, especially when you're looking at what we might face against the Minnesota Vikings. But for this week, I'm hoping that Demarius Randall does not have much of a role for this
Against the
team and
Dolphins.
that we can roll with Lano Hill and Quandre Diggs.
Now, getting to certain keys also for the defense. I mean, we know our run stop is good, and we got to go up against a familiar face that you and me both know from his days playing at the University of Washington, and Miles Sanders. I mean not Miles Sanders, excuse me, Miles Gaskins. I meant to say Miles Gaskins. Miles Sanders is up in Philadelphia. That was my bad.
Right.
But we got Gaskins, they got Jordan Howard, and then we got another familiar face that we faced in the past in Matt Breida on the Miami Dolphins running back group. So if we can shut down those running backs and not let them get in the red zone, that would be huge for us too. I mean, because Miles Gaskins, he's been looking good, and we know Jordan Howard's is a bruiser in the red zone too. And then of course, in my opinion, another big time target we got to shut down. Other than that, there's obviously Devontae Parker for the receiving core, and then there's, in my opinion, one of the most underrated tight ends, and this guy can make plays too, and I think he's really underrated. And that's Mike Gesicki. What would it take to try to shut down those guys? It's in particular also Gesicki.
Well, first of all, let me just say, if you want to see a best case scenario for Colby Parkinson, that's Mike Gesicki. If Colby Parkinson can follow the Mike Gesicki career route, that would be really good because I think they're both very similar players who can do very similar things. So I'm going to put that out there right now. Just, we won't know for a couple years, but I just want to put that out there. So one of the big reasons why the Seahawks have stopped the run so well this year is simply because teams have not run the ball that much against us, partially because we are playing it well. Puna's playing really well against the run. Wagner's played well against the run.
Reed.
KJ's played well against the run. I got to give it up to Brian Monet as well. I think he's actually playing pretty well so far. LJ Collier is playing good against the run, but also this offense is scoring so many points against opposing defenses that they have to abandon the run earlier in the game. This Seahawks offense is jumping on teams, and teams are quickly learning, like, hey, we have to pass the ball 55, 60 times a game to keep up. So there's a lot of reasons why this run defense has looked so good through the first 3 weeks, but I think the chief among them is just these teams can't afford to waste plays on running plays. So I'm not worried about the Miami running backs. I don't doubt that they're good. I really do like Myles Gaskin. I think he's a good football player. Jordan Howard has some talent as well, but I am definitely concerned about guys like Devontae Parker because he's good. Mike Gesicki, like you said, is another good one. And with the way this secondary is playing and with the secondary players we're probably going to be missing, yeah, I can honestly say you can expect Ryan Fitzpatrick to do some damage on Sunday. I think he's probably going to make some plays. He's a playmaker. He's a very tough player. We can hope as Seahawks fans that he turns the ball over a few times because that's really, to me, what's going to determine whether or not this game is close at the end.
Yeah.
If we get turnovers and Fitzpatrick, with the way he plays football, is going to give you the opportunity to generate some turnovers, we should be able to run away with this game early in the second half. But if he has a clean game, which he is capable of having, then we're going to have issues because, like you said, Devontae Parker is a very good receiver. And that's basically what this game comes down to for me again. And I'm going to say this a lot because I think it's true. This defense's only hope, especially in a game like this in Miami, is to force a lot of turnovers. We need turnovers, and we need to capitalize on them. And if those things happen, I think we're going to be all right.
Yeah, hence we either get freaking Fitzmagic or Fitztragic, and we want to force them to make Fitzpatrick be Fitztragic, as me and my buddy Dallas were saying. I was also touching up on that with TD Finn's talk on my collaboration with him, talking Seahawks versus Dolphins, and then also defensive side of the ball, you're looking at, their secondary. They got Byron Jones, the former Dallas Cowboy, and Xavier Howard? Or
Yes.
yes, I was trying to remember that. They're saying that he was asking if I have any concern about going up against them, but Byron Jones, I think, might be injured from what TD Finstock was mentioning on on our collaboration. So if we can get DK Metcalf going and Tyler Lockett going early on that one, and dust them for some pretty big touchdowns, pending the weather, we got to make, like you said, we got to make Miami desperate early, so that way, because that's one of the reasons why they're throwing the ball. But we got another thing is, he was also talking about the offensive line of Miami too, like where we got to get pressure on them. But defensive side, Kyle Van Noy comes down from the Patriots to reunite with Brian Flores. So any concerns going into that with Kyle Van Noy at linebacker as a good pass rusher? And
well, through 3 games, the Miami Dolphins defense is last in the league in DVOA. So by advanced metrics, the Dolphins defense has been the worst through 3 games. So there's a lot of good stuff that this Seahawks offense should be able to do against that defense. And as for the Dolphins secondary, their whole secondary is injured. Their whole secondary, Byron Jones is probably not going to play. I don't think Xavier Howard is going to play. A bunch of their safeties are hurt. That whole secondary could be a mash unit. And I know I talked about Dallas's secondary being a bit of a mash unit, and they actually ended up playing okay after getting blown off the field on 2 early big plays. But that Miami secondary, which is already not playing that well, is looking bad before they even get on the field. So to me, this should be an opportunity to put up a lot of points. I think this Miami defense is worse than their actual results so far. They gave up like 21 to the Patriots, which isn't bad. They gave up 13 to the Jaguars, I think, or something like that.
And
their point totals, their point totals so far have not been that bad, but I think that defense is truly awful through 3 games. And what I really want to see is we need to jump on them early, because as this game goes on, if it's hot, it's going to wear on this team. And we saw that. We've seen this before. It happened against the Chargers when it was hot.
I remember that 6 years ago. Antonio Gates went off on us. I remember how pissed I was at that one.
Yeah, I think 3 years ago it happened in Jacksonville, where we went down there and the team just wore down in the heat. There is a pretty established history of this Seahawks team just wilting in hot temperature games. So in order to avoid that, we got to go up early. We got to jump on this Chargers team in the first couple quarters.
You mean the Dolphins?
Yeah, I'm sorry. The Dolphins. Yes, the Dolphins in the first couple quarters, and good things will happen. If this game is close at the end, I start to like our chances less and less.
The only problem I got with this one is the problem that Russell Wilson is 0-3 in the state when playing games in the state of Florida. He's beaten all 3 of the Florida teams before, but those games were in Seattle. And one of the main things about this week, which is very important to us, is that we need to get that Florida monkey off of Russell Wilson's back. And I know what you mentioned about the weather and all that stuff too, but we have to try to, like you mentioned, if we get off early, we could have a good chance to finally get that Florida monkey off of Russell Wilson's back. And I just want to see us get this dub in Miami to try to get that monkey off of Russell's back. But
yeah, that stat is not an accident. Like I said, going down to Florida and playing that heat, it affects this team. So that stat is not just a coincidence. There's a reason why that's the case. It's a long flight, and the weather constantly impedes us because, like I said, this team does not respond well to playing in extreme heat. So there's a reason why that's the case.
Yeah, and then also there is what about how well we're going to run the ball? I think, would this also be possibly a good week to rest Chris Carson and maybe go Carlos Hyde, Homer, and freaking DJ Dallas finally gets his reps to return to Florida along with Travis Homer playing since they played in that stadium when obviously because the U plays there, Miami plays there too. I mean, would you go Hyde, Homer, Dallas in this game for our running back set?
If we do that, I'm fine with it. What I've seen so far is that Carson is ready to go. And if Carson's ready to go, then you should let him play. You just got to leave that up to the team doctors to determine whether or not he's at any kind of risk. And I am totally fine leaving him out for this game. I think that it's become clear that this Seahawks team, as constructed, is much better built to pass the ball than run the ball. It's not like Carson was having a dominant start to the season anyway. So yeah, I'm very comfortable with that. But I don't want to bench players just for the sake of benching players. So I'm just going to leave that one up to the team doctors to make the determination about what to do. If Carson's ready to go, he's ready to go. But I got no problem rolling with whatever running backs we need to roll with. This is Wilson's team. Ultimately, his play determines whether or not we win games, not the running backs' play.
Yeah, I just always have the injury concern. Like, I don't want to make a certain injury much worse than what it already is than when it first got diagnosed. That's kind of my worrisome with me, which is why earlier when I came into your streams talking about, like, would it be a possible good idea, of resting Jamal Adams to not make the groin strain worse? And then, of course, what happened with Carson last week on what was a freaking dirty hit, and that player that did it should get suspended and fined at the same time for what he did. That's kind of one way I like to look at certain things when it comes down to that.
Yeah. And this is not a bad week to do stuff like that. We're playing a bad team. And also, nobody likes to talk about stuff like this, but it is an AFC opponent. If you lose to an AFC opponent, that's much better than losing to an NFC opponent or especially a divisional opponent. So we all understand that we want the Seahawks to win every game, but we know they're not going to win every game they play. That just doesn't ever really happen.
Exactly.
So if we're going to drop games, you would say you hope you lose the AFC games because those don't affect you as much as the conference games and especially divisional games. So you can definitely mitigate your risk in a game like this. So I'm with you there. But if they are 100%, I don't want to be paranoid either.
Right. And obviously we want to win because we got to keep pace with the division with, taking advantage of Arizona's loss to Detroit and obviously the Rams losing to the Buffalo Bills and then the freaking 49ers losing earlier in the season in that divisional game to the Arizona Cardinals too. I mean, it's like I'm all about like gaining ground. I mean, usually we're all about gaining ground on the division. But back to the point that we already got on that point about where we talked about Kyle Van Noy, right? And what kind of pressure he possibly brings to,
Yeah, there's just nothing on this Miami defense that really concerns me. I know Kyle Van Noy is a good player. I know they have good cornerbacks if they're actually able to play, but this Miami defense through 3 games hasn't really done anything to impress me. It's their offense that I think they could maybe win the game through if they win this game, but this defense, I'm not seeing it. I'm really not.
How many Fitzpatrick runs do you expect going in this game? Because, we're going to have to expect Fitzpatrick to run the ball a few times to try to get whatever yards he can, and we got to not give him any room to run, and we got to put at least a good hit on him. I mean, that old guy could still play, though, but we got to at least
Yeah.
get a few pops on him.
Fitzpatrick's going to take off and run with it a few times, probably 6 times or something like that over the course of the game. And those can be really backbreakers because you can get a team in 3rd and long and you cover everybody and everybody's doing their job and suddenly he just takes off and runs somebody over for a first down. That's, it really hurts the morale, I think.
And then obviously we got to get our runs whenever we can, especially if we can. I mean, not that Russell Wilson likes to run, but we know he can run for first downs if needed to, if given the right open lanes. So too, I mean, but mainly this game, like you mentioned, it's going to come through our air attack. And this time, I think if we can, if the secondary, those guys ain't playing like they are, we got to at least dump at least a 6 touchdown pass game like we should have had last week if DK wasn't, an idiot on that one play for being careless. I mean, but I say we at least try to go for a 6 or 7 touchdown pass game and try to add on to a record-setting start for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, against a wounded Miami secondary, unless the rain is extreme, there should be no reason why we can't throw up numbers like that. And I am watching for that. And I will say this, if the weather conditions are really bad, then we might need Carson. Then that kind of creates a little bit of urgency around having Carson for this game because Wilson traditionally has not played good games in the rain. The offense as a whole, honestly, has not traditionally played great in the rain. So that is something I'm looking for, but hopefully we can. I think the weather report right now is about 50-50. So hopefully things just hopefully we get some good news there. That's what I can say right now. I'm not that worried about this Miami team. It's this Miami climate that has me concerned. That's what I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, but one would think, Russell would have gotten a little better playing in the rain since, for playing in many rainy games in Seattle when it's been raining. Because I've been exposed to the rain for where my seats are in the South End and CenturyLink Field when it pours down rain for certain games. And Tyler Lockett and should be used to it by now for the many years that he's been here, and maybe DK Metcalf from some of the rain games he played in last year. You think Pete ever has the guys? He's got to have the guys practice out in the elements, since we get a lot of rain up here.
Yeah, the funny thing is, for a long time, the Seahawks did not play home games in the rain nearly as much as you would have expected, given they played in Seattle.
Yeah.
It's kind of evened out lately. It's starting to come back around to where we're playing more and more games in the rain. I've been an advocate of this team building a dome for a while now, but yeah, it's just I feel like I remember too many games where it seemed like the weather got to us, and with the exception of Aaron Rodgers and maybe you could say, I guess, Tom Brady, bad weather tends to negatively affect passing attacks. Like that's just kind of common sense and logic. Aaron Rodgers manages to play incredibly well, even in freezing cold games in Lambeau Field, which
Yep.
is pretty amazing. Tom Brady always plays well in the snow. There are exceptions, but it's just kind of common sense. A passing attack wants a clear weather report.
Right. And we're hoping for that, for especially being down in a state like Florida. And then also, other than that, though, it's just turnovers and everything, like we mentioned. Maybe try to at least get 2 or 3 turnovers to win this game. But the most important thing for those turnovers, as I always mention, and you've heard me say it a lot, even through your streams, is cashing them in. We gotta cash them in. Hell, even get us a pick six if we can. We gotta try to at least get a pick six, or maybe try to get a score on special teams too. If it's possible.
Trey Flowers owes us one, plain and simple. After the way he played last week, Trey Flowers owes us something because I've been a fan of Trey Flowers for a while now, and after what he did against the Cowboys, it's getting harder and harder to be in his corner. So he owes us one. And Ugo Amadi finally got his hand on a couple of passes against the Cowboys, and he played really well. So if he starts turning into somebody who can make plays on the ball, then we might actually have something to replace Blair with, because there has been a lot said about Amadi and the positive and the negative since we drafted him, and he had never gotten his hands on a pass until Sunday. So if he starts becoming a ball hawk, maybe there's something there. So this might be a good week for him to get his first. And yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Oh, and speaking of players who owe us, I want to throw Shaquille Griffin in there as well, because through 3 games, he has given up more yards in coverage than any other player in football. So he wants that big contract at the end of this year, like everybody does. And if he doesn't start doing something good quickly, he's going to lose out on that opportunity forever.
He will. I agree. Those guys owe us. Trey last week, he should have had an interception. He should have never let that ball get off him and let freaking Gallup make that catch. That ball was right in him. He should have at least gotten made an interception on the play right there.
Yes.
But other than that,
yeah, that's really all I got for this one, though. I think that basically covers everything. Just jump on Miami early, force them into a pass-only offense, and I think the rest will take care of itself.
Got it. All right, guys, you heard it here from me and Brendon. Make sure you guys also go over there and subscribe to Brendon Nelson on his channel. Check out his video game streams whenever he goes on, and then also subscribe to yours truly here. Give us your thoughts in the comments too, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Let's hope to go out there and try to get a dub and get that monkey off of Russell Wilson in the state of Florida. Try to get his first win and make it 1-3 for Russell in Florida. Brendon, thank you once again, man.
No problem. See you next week.
All right. And remember, if you ain't with it, you ain't infamous. And as always, go Seahawks.